Greetings, Jamie here from Impeccable Indigo. It's been a while since we've made a video. I thought this one might be a little bit interesting, an unpacking video, not of snakes, but of food, snake food, because I try and take advantage of, I try and fill orders that are big enough so I get the maximum discount or the free shipping or whatever it is. I have a little freezer in my garage, and I load up on food, and so I don't have to order most food for many months at a time. And it's been quite some months since the last time. And then I was running low and I spent about almost $500 last week ordering from 2 suppliers. And I thought I'd unpack this in front of you and talk a little bit about feeding indigos. But because when we see people keeping big pythons, big Burmese and retics, and we look at those giant rats and rabbits and so forth, it's like, wow, it's kind of pricey. And it is. But you know, you're feeding those snakes once in 2 weeks, once in a month when they get bigger. And I think when people take on big colubrids in the Drymarchon family, like indigos and crebos, they don't always realize, because of the metabolism and how fast, how quickly you have to feed these animals. You're feeding these guys as adults, you're feeding them once a week, and as juveniles, maybe twice a week. And you're also trying to feed them a varied diet. Is likely healthier. You can keep them on rodent diets, but we know that their diets are very varied in the wild. So it seems wise to try and give them varied diets. And the costs add up, I got to tell you. I have 5 eastern indigo snakes here of various sizes and ages. We're going through a fair amount of food these days. Like I say, I just spent $500 and it's going to last me quite some months. I thought we'd just take a look. Now, I don't have any particular interest with these companies. I'm not promoting them. This is Rodent Pro, one of the several major suppliers of frozen rodents and other whole prey. Most of these suppliers buy their stock, it's not a secret, from China. And so there's varying qualities. People have different experiences. I've had good experiences with Rodent Pro. It does appear that Lane Labs is one of the few that produces their own animals domestically, and their prices reflect it. They're a little more expensive. I can't argue with wanting to provide your animals with the best. Anyway, this is very well insulated. I've never had any kind of bad experience with Rodent Pro's packing. And there's a lot, I don't know if I can really show this to the camera, but there's a lot of dry ice in there. And you could actually keep this box overnight without opening it an extra day, and you wouldn't have much trouble. And let's see what I've got here. So this is medium mice, which are 13 to 18 grams. And so my 2 smallest indigos, one's a year old, one's about 2, and these are good sized meals. You don't want to give Drymarchon really those big meals that you give to boas and pythons, because Drymarchon doesn't have as much elasticity in their jaws. They've given up that elasticity in return for strength, because they're not constrictors and they're not venomous, and so they have to eat what they can overpower, which means they have to eat smaller prey, and that means they have to eat more prey more frequently. And also, again, they have high metabolisms. Eastern indigos have among the largest range of any American snakes. So these medium mice are a very comfortable meal for the smaller indigos. And this is a 25 count of weaned rats. So these weaned rats are 30 to 45 grams. That's a pretty solid meal. And my 2 females, one's gone off rat, so basically my biggest female, these weaned rats are a very comfortable meal for her. She's about 1,700 grams right now. Those are for her. And then these are a little bigger. These are small rats, which are at 45 to 85. That's a big range. And that big range, I wouldn't want to try these on those 2 females who are big. They're approaching 6 feet. They're 5.5 to 6 feet. But you don't want to overfeed them, and you don't want to force them to overstretch and take a big meal that they'll either have trouble getting down or they might end up getting down and then regurgitating. So these small rats are strictly for my big male, who is now just crossed over 2,000 grams. So he's about 4.5 pounds. He can take these small rats. And a typical meal for all of my adults is, going off a guideline from my friend John Michaels of Black Pearl Reptiles, one of the biggest breeders, long-standing breeders of Drymarchon in the U.S., and he produced my big male Othello. He makes he considers a standardized meal 1 rat and 1 chick, sort of a bit of a balanced diet there. And I do the same for the bigger ones. But then I change off to other things for variety, which I'll come back to. So these are chicks, and the Rodent Pro calls these extra small chickens, 25 to a bag. These are 25 to 56 grams. So again, that's a big range. And I'm fortunate because I have a bunch of these indigos. I can pick and choose who gets the smaller ones, who gets the bigger ones. And for these, and for quail, we usually clip off the claws and the beaks just to prevent any kind of internal injuries. And speaking of quail, these are extra small quail. This is sometimes a good thing to get juveniles, juveniles started on pieces of small quail sometimes, although you can never tell with Drymarchon. This one's waiting for fish, this one's waiting for frog, this one's waiting for bird, this one's waiting for rodent, and you just have to keep trying things. Subject for another day. These are small, 7.5 to 10 grams. So these are just like a little mouthful, but when you go from extra small quail to small quail, that's a big jump in size. The small quail, so-called small quail, are almost as big as these chicks. And I'm not crazy about those small quail. They tend to have a lot of feathers, and they come in kind of dirty sometimes. I'm not a big fan. I do like these little extra smalls. They tend to be cleaner, and they're a good variety for the younger indigos. So I use these a lot on the younger indigos to vary, to mix up diet with mice and these tiny quail. And then this is another bag of chicks, because I'm going to go through a lot of chicks, because I feed chicks to all 3 of the bigger quail. As I say, the basic meal is a rat, whether it's a small rat, a weaned rat, whatever the right size of rat is, and a chick is sort of a standard meal. But my big female, Iris, who was raised on rodents when she started, she, some months ago, went off rodents, went off rats. And I thought it might be just a temporary thing. I've tried her every which way since then, and she has decided that rats are no longer food for her. Now, sometimes this might happen with an animal because you're offering them other items, and they take a preference. But if that's the case, they'll usually, if they're hungry enough, they'll usually take the thing that's not their preference. With Iris, she acts as if she doesn't recognize a rat as food. She'll even strike and then drop it instantly when she realizes it's not a bird. So I have accommodated her, and I have moved her to mainly chicks as a main diet. So like 3 of these chicks is about 100, 120 grams. She's about 1,700 grams now, 1,800. So that's a meal for her 3 chicks. So I have plenty of chicks. Now here's the other interesting box. And this is from Reptilinks. And I really like this company. They're great to do business with, and I really like this product. And I think especially for an animal like Drymarchon that we know has a varied diet in the wild. We know that young Drymarchon tend to take fish and amphibians, and then progressing from there, they'll take small rodents when they can get them. They'll take birds. They'll really take anything vertebrate that they can overpower. And I believe that the youngest ones lean towards more finding food around water from some of their behavior, because sometimes that's what will start them best or quickest is fish or amphibians. We also know there are some studies of wild diet, and some of those studies are on the resources page when Impeccable Indigos. There's over 100 scientific articles there. And we know that Drymarchon's wild diet is perhaps 50% or even more reptiles, specifically other snakes, including venomous snakes. There's another paper up there that demonstrated that we always thought that Easterns were resistant to rattlesnake venom. Turns out they're actually immune to it, and we now have the proof of that. So I love these Reptilinks because it lets me really give them a varied diet. So, and I change that depending on whether they're small or large. There's lots of ice. Again, really good packing here. So these are 18-gram iguanas. You see they're about the size of my thumb. And it's iguana meat, so it's reptile meat. So to me, this is trying to accomplish the reptile portion of their diet, not 50%. Stuff's expensive. But these will go down easily for my next to smallest indigo. That's going on she's about 2 years. And this is sort of a perfect size for her, like the size of an adult mouse, but not a giant mouse, right? So that's a good size for her. And then my littlest indigo, these are the 10-gram, and these are frog. So this is 10-gram frog, and I can give this to both of my smaller indigos, including the smallest, Oberon, who's about a year now. I've used these for a long time for my younger indigos. And the reason I say for my younger indigos is because when they get to adult size, then I buy bags of frozen frog legs at the Asian market, and I split them in half. They come in a pair. You cut them in half into single legs, and I give those to the big indigos maybe once a month as variety. It's the only prey I feed that's not whole prey. I'm a little disturbed when I see people feeding filet, fish, chicken meat, all these kinds of things to Drymarchon just because they'll eat it. But just because they'll eat it doesn't mean it's an ideal meal. When you have an animal that's eating once a week, 50 meals a year, every one of those meals that is not whole prey is a significant change in their diet. And predators get all sorts of vitamins, minerals, benefits from eating whole prey. An important element, of course, is calcium from the skeletal system, but also from other things, from stomach contents and organs and all of that. I never feed just fillet of fish. I feed silver sides as fish to my smaller animals, and those are essentially whole. They're gutted, but they at least have the skeleton. And the frog legs is the one exception because they really have big bones in there, nice solid skeleton, and it gets them amphibian meat, a variety. But the little guys, my little indigos, they can't take those big frog legs, so I get them the little frog Reptilinks. And that's the purpose of that, as well as the iguana. And then these are giant iguana links. These are like 50 grams a piece, sort of the size of about a weed rat, give or take. And the big indigos, they swallow these so quickly, it's almost impossible for me to get a video of them actually getting it down, because once they grab it, it's down in just a moment. And so again, this is a way to get reptile food into their diet. And that's, I think I ordered 2 packages of those. They're about the size of a human hot dog. I don't know how they do with mustard on a roll. That's from Reptilinks. So all of this that I've shown you is about $500 worth of food that it cost me. It's going to last me for quite some months. In addition, I have a bag of frozen silver sides I buy from the Asian market. In the freezer here, I have a bag of frozen frog legs, as I already mentioned. I don't think I got any adult mice here because I'm really kind of in between sizes. I'm not using those very much. I do keep some on hand for my young son's corn snake, actually. That's a good size for the corn snake, about 20 grams, give or take. Anyway, when you're thinking about adding an indigo snake to your collection or any other Drymarchon, keep in mind, they're not the cheapest guys to feed, but I believe it's well worth keeping them. I love those personalities. They are my favorites, Eastern Indigo Snakes. Learn more at impeccableIndigos.com. And thanks for watching.